everyone and welcome to the Young and the Restless channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. In the restless, ever-shifting heart of Genoa City, the calm before the storm is nothing more than an illusion, a fragile moment that threatens to shatter at any second. As Monday, April 6 unfolds, the air feels heavier, charged with secrets, ambition, and the quiet tremors of betrayal waiting to erupt. At the center of it all stands Jack Abbott, a man already burdened by regret, yet somehow teetering on the edge of making another devastating mistake. His world, once grounded in love and certainty, has been shaken to its core, and the choices he makes now could determine whether anything remains to salvage. And while Jack wrestles with his own turmoil, a far more dangerous game is beginning to take shape in the shadows, one that could ripple through every corner of the city. Across town, inside the warm yet tension-filled atmosphere of crimson lights, a conversation brews that could change everything. Kane Ashby leans in with calculated intent, his voice steady but laced with ambition, as he lays out a daring proposition to Holden Novak. The target is none other than Victor Newman, a man whose power casts a long, unyielding shadow over Genoa City. Kane's plan is not one of subtle resistance, but of calculated attack, and he makes it clear that he is willing to reward Holden handsomely for stepping into the fire. Yet, as the offer hangs in the air, heavy with promise and danger, Holden finds himself caught in a storm of doubt. Taking on Victor isn't just risky, it's potentially ruinous, a move that could cost him far more than he's prepared to lose. But the stakes rise even higher when one name lingers unspoken between them, carrying emotional weight that neither can ignore: Claire Newman. For Holden, Claire isn't just a passing thought, she's a moral compass, a connection that makes this decision far more complicated than it first appears. He knows, deep down, that she would never approve of a scheme designed to bring down her own grandfather, and if Kane's plan involves using Claire as a pawn, manipulating her for information, then the line between strategy and betrayal becomes dangerously blurred. The promise of money glitters temptingly, but it's shadowed by the cost to his conscience, and Holden is left to wrestle with a question that has no easy answer. How far is he willing to go, and who is he willing to hurt in the process? Unaware of the storm gathering around her, Claire moves through her own crossroads, completely in the dark about the dangerous alliance forming behind her back. Her thoughts are consumed by a deeply personal decision, one that could pull her further into the powerful orbit of her family's legacy. As she struggles with whether to step in and support her mother and Victor Newman as Chancellor, the weight of expectation presses heavily on her shoulders. In this moment of uncertainty, Victoria Newman may step forward, offering guidance shaped by her own complicated history. It's a conversation that carries both warmth and tension as Claire seeks clarity in a world where loyalty often comes at a steep price, and every decision seems to lead deeper into the family's intricate web of power and consequence. Meanwhile, within the elegant yet emotionally charged setting of the GCAC, another fragile confrontation begins to unfold. Jack, driven by a mixture of regret and desperation, makes the fateful choice to approach Diane Jenkins Abbott after catching her attention. It's a decision that feels impulsive, almost inevitable, as if he cannot bear the distance any longer, even when every instinct tells him to wait. With an apologetic plea forming on his lips, Jack hopes, perhaps unrealistically, that he can begin to mend what's been broken. But the moment he steps forward, the emotional tension snaps tight, and it becomes painfully clear that Diane is nowhere near ready to forgive. What follows is not reconciliation, but eruption. Diane, still raw from the betrayal and hurt, refuses to entertain Jack's excuses, her anger rising with the force that leaves no room for misunderstanding. She unleashes every ounce of frustration and pain she's been holding back, her words cutting deep as she makes it clear that trust, once shattered, cannot be easily restored. Jack is left standing in the aftermath, the weight of his choices crashing down on him all at once, as the hope he carried into that conversation slips through his fingers. It's a moment of emotional reckoning, one that leaves him more isolated than ever, forced to confront the reality that some wounds cannot be healed with apologies alone. In the quiet that follows, Jack may turn to Kyle Abbott, seeking not only comfort but also a sense of direction in the chaos. Yet, even this refuge carries its own undercurrent of tension, as pain begins to transform into something sharper, something more dangerous. Together, they may find themselves drifting into conversations not just about healing, but about retribution, about making someone else pay for the destruction that's been unleashed. Because while Jack may not yet have a clear plan, one thing is certain. He wants Victor to answer for the role he played in tearing his marriage apart. And as these threads tighten across Genoa City, a storm begins to gather around Victor Newman from every direction. Unseen alliances, fractured relationships, and simmering vendettas are all converging, each one carrying the potential to strike when he least expects it. The question is no longer if trouble is coming, but how many sides it will come from, and whether even someone as powerful as Victor can withstand the impact. In a city where loyalty is fragile and power is everything, the next move could change everything, setting the stage for a reckoning that no one will escape untouched. As the tension deepens and shadows stretch longer across Genoa City, the ripple effects of every quiet decision begin to echo louder, threading together into something far more dangerous than any one person can control. What began as a whispered proposition over coffee now feels like the opening move in a high-stakes war, and Kane Ashby knows exactly what he's doing as he watches Holden Novak wrestle with his conscience. Kane doesn't push too hard. He doesn't need to. Instead, he lets the weight of the opportunity settle in, knowing that temptation often works best when it lingers in silence. The promise of power, of money, of being part of something bold enough to challenge Victor Newman himself is intoxicating in its own way. And yet, beneath that allure, there's an undeniable sense of danger, like standing too close to the edge of a cliff and wondering what it might feel like to fall. For Holden, the conflict isn't just strategic, it's deeply personal, cutting through him with a sharpness he can't ignore. Every path forward seems to lead to a different kind of loss, and no matter which choice he makes, someone will inevitably pay the price. The thought of betraying Claire Newman lingers like a shadow he can't shake, her trust becoming the silent measure of his integrity. He imagines the look in her eyes if she ever discovered the truth, that he stood by, or worse, actively participated in a scheme designed to bring down her grandfather. And if Kane's plan truly involves using Claire as a source of information, as a means to an end, then Holden would be crossing a line that can never be uncrossed. Still, the pressure mounts, the stakes rise, and the longer he sits with the decision, the more it feels like inaction might be just as dangerous as choosing the wrong side. Unaware of the storm tightening around her, Claire continues to stand at her own emotional crossroads, her world narrowing down to a choice that feels both inevitable and overwhelming. The influence of Victoria Newman lingers in her thoughts, offering guidance that is both comforting and complicated, shaped by years of navigating the same powerful family dynamics. Claire can feel the pull of loyalty, the quiet expectation that she will step up, that she will stand beside her family when it matters most. And yet, something inside her hesitates, a whisper of doubt that questions whether stepping into that world will cost her more than she is ready to give. She doesn't yet realize that her decision is not just personal but pivotal. that unseen forces are already moving around her, quietly positioning her as a piece in a much larger game. Back at the GCAC, the emotional fallout from Jack's failed attempt at reconciliation continues to spread like cracks through glass. Jack Abbott walks away from Diane Jenkins Abbott not with closure but with a deeper sense of loss, as though the distance between them has only grown wider. Her words linger in his mind, sharp and unrelenting, leaving him to replay every mistake, every moment that led them to this breaking point. There's a heaviness in his steps now, a quiet realization that apologies alone cannot rebuild what's been shattered. And in that silence, something begins to shift inside him. Pain slowly hardening into resolve, grief beginning to take the shape of anger. It's in this fragile state that Jack finds himself drawn back toward Kyle Abbott, not just as a son, but as an ally in a world that suddenly feels hostile and uncertain. Their conversations, once grounded in family and understanding, begin to take on a different tone, edged with frustration and the need for accountability. Together, they circle around the same name, the same source of their unraveling, Victor Newman. Jack doesn't yet know what form his response will take, but the desire for justice, or perhaps something closer to revenge, burns steadily beneath the surface. And Kyle, caught between loyalty and reason, may find himself pulled into a plan that neither of them fully understands yet. As night begins to fall over Genoa City, the separate threads of ambition, heartbreak, and deception begin to weave together into something far more volatile. Kane's quiet manipulation, Holden's moral struggle, Claire's unaware vulnerability, and Jack's growing need for retribution all converge toward a single, unavoidable truth. Victor Newman is about to face pressure from every direction. But what makes this storm truly dangerous is not just its scale, but its unpredictability. The way each move could trigger consequences no one sees coming. In a city where power is everything and trust is always at risk, the next step could tip the balance completely. And as the tension reaches its breaking point, one question hangs heavy in the air. When the storm finally hits, who will be left standing in its wake? As the night deepens over Genoa City, a quiet, almost eerie stillness settles in, a deceptive calm that masks the storm gathering just beneath the surface. Behind closed doors and dimly lit corners, decisions are being made that will soon collide with explosive force, each one tightening the invisible threads binding these lives together. Kane Ashby, ever patient and calculating, doesn't need to chase an answer from Holden Novak anymore. He can see it forming in Holden's eyes, the internal shift, the slow surrender to a path he once would have rejected outright. The hesitation is still there, flickering like a dying flame, but it's being overshadowed by something stronger now, something more dangerous. Because once a man starts convincing himself that the ends might justify the means, the line between right and wrong begins to blur beyond recognition. And Holden feels that shift too, whether he wants to admit it or not. The weight of Claire Newman's trust presses heavily against his conscience, but it's no longer the only voice in his head. Kane's offer, the promise of reward, the thrill of stepping into a game powerful enough to shake Victor Newman himself. It all pulls at him with undeniable force. He begins to rationalize, telling himself that maybe he can control how far things go, that maybe he can walk the edge without falling completely into darkness. But deep down, there's a quiet, unsettling truth he can't escape. Once he steps into this game, there may be no way back. And if Claire becomes part of the strategy, even indirectly, the damage won't just be strategic. It will be deeply, irreparably personal. Elsewhere, Claire stands on the edge of a decision that feels both empowering and terrifying, completely unaware of how deeply she is already entangled in something far bigger than herself. The guidance of Victoria Newman echoes in her mind, steady and reassuring, yet laced with the kind of hard-earned wisdom that only comes from years of navigating betrayal and power struggles. Claire can feel the pull toward her family growing stronger. The sense that stepping up at Chancellor might be the right thing, the expected thing. But there's still that quiet resistance inside her, a part of her that wonders what she might lose in the process. She doesn't yet realize that her choice won't just define her future. It may unknowingly set events in motion that place her directly in the crosshairs of a plan she never agreed to be part of. Meanwhile, in the wake of emotional devastation, Jack Abbott finds himself standing at a crossroads of his own, one shaped not by uncertainty but by growing clarity. And that clarity is dangerous. The pain of losing Diane Jenkins Abbott, or at least the version of their relationship he once believed in, begins to transform into something sharper, something far less forgiving. Her rejection didn't just wound him, it stripped away any illusion that time alone could fix what's been broken. And in that raw, exposed state, Jack begins to look outward, searching for someone to hold accountable, someone to blame for the chain of events that led them here. It doesn't take long for his focus to lock onto the same name that's been echoing across the city: Victor Newman. With Kyle Abbott by his side, Jack's thoughts begin to take on a more deliberate shape, shifting from emotion to intention. Their conversations grow quieter, more focused, as if they both understand that what they're stepping into requires caution and commitment. There's no fully formed plan yet, no detailed strategy to strike back, but the foundation is being laid with every word, every shared look of understanding. Kyle may still carry hesitation, a lingering awareness of the risks involved in going up against someone like Victor. But loyalty has a way of silencing doubt. And as father and son begin to align, their shared resolve creates something formidable, something that could evolve into a real threat if given enough time. All the while, at the center of it all, Victor Newman remains a towering presence, a man accustomed to control, to dominance, to always being one step ahead. But even the most powerful figures can't anticipate every move when the opposition is scattered, emotional, and driven by deeply personal motives. What makes this moment so dangerous isn't just that Victor has enemies, it's that those enemies are beginning to form in places he may not yet be watching. Kane's quiet manipulation, Holden's internal compromise, Jack's growing hunger for retaliation, each one is a spark, and together they threaten to ignite something far greater than any single act of rebellion. And as the night stretches on, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. The balance of power in Genoa City is beginning to shift. Not all at once, not in some grand, obvious way, but slowly, subtly, like the first cracks forming beneath a surface that once seemed unbreakable. The question is no longer whether Victor will face opposition, but whether he'll see it coming before it's too late. Because in a world where loyalty can be turned, trust can be weaponized, and even love can be used as leverage, the greatest threat isn't always the strongest one. It's the one that strikes when no one is prepared. And when that moment finally comes, it won't just change the game, it will redefine it entirely. By the time the first light of dawn begins to creep over Genoa City, the city feels different, subtly altered, as though something irreversible has already been set into motion during the quiet hours of the night. The decisions made in secrecy now linger in the air like an approaching storm, unseen yet undeniable, ready to break at any moment. Kane Ashby moves forward with a quiet confidence, no longer wondering if Holden Novak will accept his offer, but how far he will go once he does. There's a patience in Kane's strategy, a willingness to let the pieces fall into place naturally, because he understands something crucial. People are far easier to manipulate when they believe they're acting on their own choices. And now, Holden is standing right at that tipping point where hesitation gives way to action and action leads to consequences that can never be undone. For Holden, the moment of decision doesn't come with clarity or certainty. It comes with a quiet internal surrender. The doubts don't disappear, nor does the image of Claire Newman looking at him with trust he may soon betray. But the pressure, the temptation, and the dangerous allure of being part of something powerful begin to outweigh the fear. He starts to convince himself that he can navigate the situation carefully, that he can protect Claire even while stepping into a plan that could ultimately harm her. It's a fragile justification, one built on hope rather than truth, and yet it's enough to push him forward. Because sometimes the most devastating choices aren't made in defiance of conscience, but in quiet negotiation with it. At the same time, Claire awakens to a new day, still unaware that her life is slowly being pulled into a web she cannot yet see. Her thoughts remain fixed on the decision before her, the possibility of stepping in to support her family at Chancellor growing more real with each passing moment. The voice of Victoria Newman lingers in her mind, offering both reassurance and expectation, a reminder of the strength it takes to stand within the Newman legacy. Claire wants to do the right thing, to be someone her family can rely on, but there's a quiet unease she can't quite shake. It's the feeling that something is shifting around her, something just out of reach, as though the ground beneath her feet is beginning to move before she's even taken her next step. Elsewhere, the emotional wreckage left behind at the GCAC continues to echo through Jack Abbott's thoughts, refusing to fade with time or distance. His failed attempt to reach Diane Jenkins Abbott has left a mark deeper than he anticipated, forcing him to confront not only her anger but his own sense of helplessness. But Jack is not a man who remains broken for long. He adapts, he recalibrates, and now he begins to refocus his energy with a dangerous sense of purpose. The pain is still there, sharp and unrelenting, but it's being redirected, reshaped into something more actionable. Because if he can't fix what's been lost, then perhaps he can ensure that the man responsible for helping destroy it doesn't walk away unscathed. With Kyle Abbott increasingly drawn into his father's orbit, the two begin to move beyond conversation and into quiet preparation. There's a subtle shift in their dynamic now, an unspoken understanding that they may soon cross a line from which there's no easy return. Kyle still carries his doubts, his awareness of how dangerous it is to go head to head with Victor Newman. But he also sees the fire in Jack's eyes, the kind that doesn't burn out easily. And in that fire, there's conviction, the kind that pulls others in whether they are ready or not. Together, they begin to consider possibilities, angles, vulnerabilities.